Let me talk a little bit about the accusation of starvation in Gaza, because that's another Orwellian inversion, right? So no army in the history of this planet has ever made greater efforts to make humanitarian aid reach the civilian population of the enemy. There's just no case in history where anything like this has happened. I mean, the state of Israel has bent over backwards to let truckloads, tons and tons and tons of humanitarian aid into Gaza, which is a way of helping Hamas. Okay, because Hamas ends up controlling the humanitarian aid and it makes them stronger. But never in history has there been this amazing phenomenon of a country that is under attack feeding the population of the enemy. This has never happened before. And again, it's the Orwellian inversion, because in these circumstances, what the media starts telling everybody in the West is that Israel is supposedly starving people in Gaza to death, right? And the way they do it, so we've covered this already, but I'm going to go over this ground one more time, very, very fast, because it's very important, because we call ourselves the management of reality, and we need to help people distinguish, reality from the lies. So this is the photograph that the New York Times used to convince the world that there's supposedly that people in Gaza are supposedly starving. Okay, and I mean, of course, you have to be sorry. You have to feel sorry for that kid, of course, but that doesn't mean he's starving. David Collier, an independent journalist, got the medical records for this kid, and it turned out that he has a medical condition that it interferes with the growth of his muscles. So yes, he's abnormally thin, that's for sure, but it's not because he's starving. And the hypothesis that you're being lied to should have been the first hypothesis for the people at the New York Times, right? They're supposed to be, seasoned journalists, right? This is supposed to be the best, the most prestigious, the trend-setting newspaper of record is what they call themselves. They're the newspaper of record, right? So supposedly, I mean, if you're living in a world with a real free press, with institutions that are really trying to establish what's going on, right? This photograph would have never passed the smell test, because it is obvious that the mother is not suffering from malnutrition, and so you would have to think that the mother is keeping food from her child. How is this happening? How is the mother well fed and the child is starving? That's obviously ridiculous. So there should have been a lot of suspicion about this photograph from the beginning, because it looks funny, right? But no, they went ahead and they published it, and they claimed that this was evidence for starvation. And the thing that we explained in the previous podcast is that, look, if you really have images of people starving, you would use those. You wouldn't create a hoax. You wouldn't grab a photo of a child who has a genetic condition that interferes with the growth of his muscles, right? Because that's a lie. He's not malnourished. He has a medical problem, sure, but it's not malnutrition, right? So if you really had photographs of people starving, you would use those. Of course, you wouldn't run the risk of being exposed by David Collier, as happened. The New York Times had to apologize and retract itself partially. But they kept saying that even though the kid had a genetic condition, that he was also malnourished. And the claim that he's also malnourished, that claim is coming from the Gaza Health Ministry. And the Gaza Health Ministry is Hamas. So what the New York Times is doing is it's repeating whatever Hamas says as if it were true. They're repeating what genocidal terrorists in Gaza say to them as if it were true. This is anti-Semitism. There's no reason to believe a word that the Hamas genocidal terrorists in Gaza say. But this is what all the media does. So let me point out, here's an article by CNN. And this is what they're saying right now in reply to the proposal, to the policy announcement, forgive me, that Israel will conquer the city of Gaza, right? So in reaction to that, oh, forgive me, I'm looking at the wrong, that's Spanish. I had it in English here. Let me see if I can find it. Well, I'll just translate it. We will give you the link to the article in English, but I'll just translate what they're saying so that I don't waste time looking for it. Okay, so here it is. So they say that the deaths by hunger are increasing in the enclave in Gaza, especially among children with severe malnutrition, said Raja Singham. This is how you know that people are lying, right? Deaths by starvation are augmenting, especially among people with severe malnutrition. Yeah, I would think, right, that the people dying from starvation would be people with severe malnutrition. The people who usually die of starvation are the people with severe malnutrition. They're imbeciles, right? They're lying, so they speak too much. They talk for too long, right? And then they say this nonsense. And look what he says. He says, from October 2023, 98 children have died from severe malnutrition, and 37 just since last July 1st. He informed the Security Council of the UN, citing the health authorities in Gaza. And that's the key phrase, citing the health authorities in Gaza. So what CNN is saying is that 98 children have died, and the people that are giving them this information are the Hamas terrorists in Gaza. CNN does not care. This is like, imagine that you had a serial killer in your city, and the cops are trying to catch the serial killer. And the news is reporting on this whole drama by telling you what the situation is, and their report of the situation is coming from the serial killer. Okay? So the local city in the news is telling you, oh, and this is going on, and this is going on, and the police are doing this, and this is happening, and all of that stuff is being fed to them by the serial killer. Meanwhile, the police makes different kinds of claims, of course, and those are not important. And the entire, let us say, the entire slant of the news reporting is that the police are reacting disproportionately to the serial killer. They're being too mean to the serial killer. This is what's going on. The news media is reporting on events in Gaza according to the description of the Hamas genocidal terrorists. The people in charge are totalitarians. They're trying to kill the Jews. They control the news. That's why the news is upside down. That's why when the state of Israel makes the biggest efforts possible, not only to spare for the civilian population, but to feed it, they're accused of starving them and of conducting a genocide. That's because the people who want to kill Jews are in control of the media.